But today we've decided to look at a movie that is still currently in cinemas, which is cool because it's my podcast and I can do what I want. So joining me is Flo. Hello.
Hi.
You've ventured many a time on this podcast, but thank you for joining me in this new endeavour.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So we're going to talk about a movie that's got a lot of, I don't know that it's got a lot of press, but a lot of hype. I think definitely it's fair to say that it's been hyped.
Yeah, I think it was really sort of sold as being quite a mysterious thing that you have to go see without getting any spoilers about.
Yeah.
And I think I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So we went to see Barbarian, a 2022 horror film written and directed by Zach Cregger in his solo directorial debut. And I did go in not knowing anything about it other than the basic plot line, which is that two people book the same Airbnb, which is also the plot line of a romantic comedy coming out later this year, which is quite funny. However, you did not do that.
Yeah, I didn't. So I knew a little bit more about it than you're supposed to. I didn't know loads. There was still like, obviously there's quite big twists in it that I didn't know were going to happen. But basically, I'd gotten really scared the day before from watching a different horror, and I was just too frightened to go without at least, checking what it was going to involve.
I think definitely because it was being pushed. The poster is this big red rectangle with just the doorway, and it's very ominous, and it's called Barbarian in this big font, Stephen King-esque font, and
its rating is like 18 for gore, like horrible murders and everything nasty.
And so and on top of that, the sort of whispers of the Twitter and Letterboxd communities of like, no, as little as possible. Oh, you're gonna sit here and be like, what the hell did I just watch? Oh man. So I think we both went in with this idea that it's gonna be a sort of big twisty, I don't know. It's interesting what you go in expecting Barbarian to be and then what you come out having experienced.
I got the impression, based off Twitter, that it was going to change my life.
Completely. I thought it was going to be some groundbreaking, new wave era of horror, like welcoming in like an almost new genre. And we're going to begin this review without spoiling anything. So I guess we'll save our opinions on whether that was accurate or not later.
Yep.
So it's so interesting to not spoil this movie. You can really only talk about essentially the trailer, like the first like half an hour?
Yeah.
Hour maybe?
Yeah, like the first act of the movie is essentially what the trailer and the synopsis is about.
Completely. And I mean, I think it's really artfully done as both a movie and a horror movie and a character study. And I think it's because it's essentially a two-hander, it would obviously translate really well to a play. But also not, because it's so well done.
It's very, like the cinematography feels so important. And it's like that first act of it, I just thought was brilliant. Like such a sort of interesting dynamic between two characters.
And again, an attempt to not spoil anything, we're going to have to be as vague as possible, but it's really hard to talk about this movie without, because whilst something may not be considered a massive twist or a spoiler, I think what it does is that it dampens your experience of the film and how you interact and engage with these characters in front of you. So we both had a very different interaction with the first act, I would say. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's true.
There was knew something that I didn't.
So much of the first act is, I mean, we can say this much because this is what's shown in the trailer, that a woman goes to an Airbnb, she finds out it's been double booked, there's a guy there, Keith, and she's in a very dark area, there's nowhere else she can stay. It's a lot about sort of, she's very wary, but she doesn't have many choices, and they end up staying in the same Airbnb. And it's sort of a psychological, I guess, thriller about whether she can trust him. And, he's played by Bill Skarsgård, who just looks scary in general. And it's about
but like a hot scary.
Yeah, hot scary. But then, so I suppose the difference between our experience was that the question is, can you trust him or not? And is each moment that happens like really, is it a super frightening thing that's happening, or is it just him trying to be normal and being a bit awkward? And because I knew a little bit more about how things would proceed, like I could sort of maybe judge it more accurately. Whereas I think part of the power is that you're just left really unsure of what's going to happen.
I was very surprised afterwards to find out that this was written and directed by a man, because I thought he did a really good portrayal of just the very day-to-day things that are frightening for women. Like really tapped into to little things that you may not think about as being scary. And we've seen a lot of male reactions to this movie through YouTube reviews, and I've been reading a lot of Letterboxd reviews, and it is really interesting how different people take the different moments and what they read them as. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, it's I think it's a movie that anyone can get on board with how she's feeling, but there probably is like that extra aspect of realism if you're a woman watching it, and you're seeing the things that you do on a daily basis to sort of feel safe if you're amongst like a stranger. And there's like upfront discussion about it in the movie where she sort of says like,
absolutely,
you as a man don't have to be scared of me in this moment, whereas like I have to be fearful of you because like I'll be an idiot if I'm not.
Yeah, completely. Like fundamentally you're stronger than me, so that's frightening in itself.
Yeah.
Which, if we put a pin in that, will tie into a discussion later on, I think, that'll come about with the third act.
So what was your overall thoughts on the movie without spoilers?
I really, really loved it. Like, when I first came out, I was ecstatic with my reaction. I really was like, I'd had such a good time. And then we went for food afterwards, didn't we? And within that like 2-hour chat, we'd sort of broken things down, and like, Zach, we have notes, but like fundamentally, like, screenwriting is hard, filmmaking is hard, and I don't begrudge any problems that I have with this movie. They're not bad enough that it ruins the overall experience for me, of which was a roller coaster of enjoyment.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I loved my favorite bits were the comedy. There's like a surprising amount of really funny scenes in it, which was great. It was like really good use of like, various shots and jump scares, but didn't rely on them. It was really good at being creepy all the way through. So I really enjoyed all of that. Just like you said, there was sort of some things after coming out that like when I examined the movie more, there were moments where kind of just the logic of what happened didn't really work for me. And obviously in movies, and particularly horrors, there's a certain amount of stuff like, you've got to go back to the spooky house because that's the movie has to happen.
Because otherwise the movie doesn't happen.
And it just goes to the credits straight away. But also there were some things that was like, where it just didn't really work for me, which we can get into more later.
Yeah, completely. But really stark visual, like moments of visuals that have stayed with me.
Yeah, definitely.
And were shocking in the moment. Really, really well, like great visual reveals as well.
Oh, and the soundtrack was so good as well.
Oh, so good. So good. Really good use of music throughout, and brilliant performances from all the actors.
Yeah, all
involved.
The cast was great.
Top notch. I guess we can go into spoiler territory now.
Yeah, let's go for it.
So if you have seen the movie, stay with us and let's unfold the next 2 acts.
And if you haven't, go watch it.
Oh boy, I mean, I honestly thought I kept going back and forth. Did Keith open her door? Did Keith not open her door? Is Keith gonna murder her? Did Keith put something in the tea? Could he slip something in the wine? Oh, Keith, you're so cute. Oh, he's left the note. Oh, and everything he does is so reasonable and so thoughtful and so decent.
He's a really greatly written character and played so well. And it it was so cool that he does such a great performance where anything he does could be creepy, but he also probably my favorite Keith moment is him doing the whole monologue with the wine where he's like, I noticed you didn't drink the tea, which is understandable because obviously you don't know me, but also I thought maybe you'd want some wine, but I didn't want to open the wine while you're in the bathroom because then you might think that I poisoned it or something. So anyway, you might not want wine anyway, but it's all completely he was so sweet, but also you're like, why are you going so much about the wine, Keith? This is suspicious.
This is everything's suspicious. Even the making of the bed with the bed sheet,
which is so friggin' cute. I was giggling next to you in the cinema so much because I was like, he's adorable. I love him. Hope he's not a murderer.
Yeah, literally. Because even that came about because Tess is she's like, you take the bed, I'll take the sofa. Chivalrous, possibly sexist, but kind of not, because it's just a sweet gesture, but then you're like, oh. And then Tess is like, I have a thing about germs, you've clearly already been in the bed and I don't like that. So the next shot is the washing machine cleaning the sheets, and it's really well done, it's really well put together. And then her door is opened in the middle of the night, and
she comes
Keith is asleep
and
night
having a night terror. And just going in his sleep, which
in itself is really frightening, because you're because you know that something's wrong with this house, because we've already had one of my favorite shots. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Well, we might be about to talk about the same thing, but I was going to say that scene is the first moment that a door closes behind her as she walks towards Keith. So you have your first confirmation of there's something much bigger going on here than an Airbnb mix-up.
Yeah, very creepy, very good. Our cinema screening was weirdly quiet. There weren't many people there, and they were all sat sort of behind us, so I don't know if they were all just on their phones, but you and I got increasingly more vocal to the point where I just didn't care about the people behind me and started being like, Tess! Run, Tess! Which is part of the enjoyment of this film. It's a very good yell at the scream moment. So that's it, of course. So the door closes, something supernatural or ominous is happening. And then we have my favorite shot of the whole movie, where she comes out in the daylight, and the night before she'd looked around the houses in the neighborhood, and it's dark and it's raining and none of the lights are on, and it's creepy, but you're a bit it's also possibly 2 a.m. So it's fine, I get it. However, in the daylight we come out and it's revealed so beautifully that every other house on this neighborhood is dilapidated,
completely
it's
abandoned
up, it's graffitied, just it's and this house is pristine dollhouse in the middle of this rundown abandoned area, and it is so frightening. It really,
you suddenly realize how far away from civilization and safety she is.
Yeah, and I think if that had happened to me, I honestly I would have driven to my job interview, and then I would have just driven to the airport and stayed there until I had to go home. Even if I had, and this is the thing, this is where we start getting into these tricksy bits that some people seem to misunderstand, some people may not take as good enough of a reason, but she's there on a job interview, so she's trying to move into this industry, and she meets with this woman and it goes well, and she has to stay another night. And she lets this woman know where she's staying, and immediately this woman is like, don't go back there.
I really liked that moment, because that scene, it sort of sets really well why she feels the need to go back. And it's not that the woman said anything wrong to her, but there's that sort of pressure to she says to her oh, I'm tough, don't worry about it. She feels that she has to almost prove and be no, I made a good decision, don't think my decision making's bad, I'm going back there and it's fine, and I'm staying there. So I understand in that moment why she makes the decision to go back.
Independent.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm independent and strong and clever, and it will be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And also on top of, so it makes complete sense as to why she goes back, and it's an incredibly chilling moment with the performance of the job interviewer, where she's so unnerved by what she's just heard as to where she's staying, and we don't know why. Like, we don't know why, other than the fact that...
Well, I mean, to be honest, if someone told you they were staying on that street, you'd be like, what, like in a crack house? Like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no... Like, there's nowhere to stay there.
Like, how?
Yeah.
And all the hotels are booked out because there's a conference, which the night before, even though you do get confirmation from one hotel that they're all booked up, it's Bill Skarsgård telling you there's a conference in town.
And you're like,
no
a likely fucking like, story.
Oh, I want to believe you, Bill, but yeah, it's very convenient for you, Bill. But it is true. So back we go to what I'm gonna call lovingly the Barbarian house.
So then she gets back. If I recall correctly, she goes looking for toilet paper. Right.
So we get the poster shot of her at the top of the cellar, and I think I leant across to you and was like, oh, that's the poster.
That's the shot from the movie.
And so both of us felt like, oh, this is the turning point in the movie where it's the bit. So we were like, oh, okay, something's going to happen now. And it's brilliant. Her whole ordeal with the cellar is great.
Oh, honestly, I would have just died instantly if that door closed behind me. It would have been the scariest fucking thing ever. So sorry. She goes down to the basement. She gets the toilet paper. The door closes behind her. It's locked. She can't get out. So she's stuck in the basement.
Horrible. We find, even worse, a pulley rope that opens another stone door that goes into a corridor, which immediately she's like, no, I'm not going down there. Mm-hmm. And of course you wouldn't. But then you get the impression that it's been like an hour. And so she's like...
And in fairness, she sat in this basement looking at this like pitch black opening into the basement. I mean, so she decides that she's going to light it by holding a mirror and getting sort of the light from above her, genius, to go down the hall. And then with the light that reflects down the hall, she sees a door handle. So she goes into that creepy fucking tunnel because she's in a horror movie and she has to. And she finds
she does have to.
A room with a mattress, a bucket, a video camera, and a bloody handprint on the wall.
Which is genuinely like the worst thing you can probably find at the end of a corridor.
Yeah, it's kind of like the answer to like if you're on like Family Fortunes and they were like, what are the things you don't want to find in someone's secret basement room? They're like, those would be all of them. So she freaks out. She starts banging on the basement window. It's just as Keith is coming back. And then he manages to get her out of the basement. And she's obviously in a massive panic. And she tells him what she'd seen. But he, not hearing about it. And also, I think the movie is kind of saying, like, also because he's a man. Because there's also been discussion about, like, how women have to be more fearful for their safety. And, like, I'm not arguing about whether that's true or not, but I think that is something that's ingrained into people's consciousness. So he decides to go down and have a little look around in the basement because he essentially doesn't believe her. As he says to her, like, you're telling me that there's a room with like a bed and a bucket in it and like I'm supposed to like flee now.
Yeah, I meant to find that frightening, which like I think if you came up and told me I found a room with a camera and a bed and a bucket and a handprint on the wall, I'd be like, pack your bags, let's go.
I sort of see Keith's point in the sense that you're like, are you saying they're all like piled up together, or is it like a very clear, you know, like it really depends on what you're saying happened in that room. Whereas I'm sure once he gets a proper look at it, he's like, I see. It's a murder room.
Which is valid. And again, very validly, Tess is like, I'm not coming down with you. And at this point, I did start to say to her out loud, like, Tess, go.
Yeah, just like, fucking go. And he's like, oh, please, in case the basement door closes behind me. It's like, I'm not staying. So, like, you should not fucking go in the basement if you're worried that's going to happen.
Like, or you could just not go down, But we can't forget that this could be her future husband. Like,
I'm not
really well.
They get on well. She fancies him. She's going through a breakup.
Evening.
But I'm also not. I don't know. It's like, I mean, that's not.
And I am the kind of idiot.
You'd be like, well, I'll stick around for you. I think I'm like, if he was going to go.
Like,
I think I'd be like, look, he seems like a nice enough guy. If he's literally just going to glance in that room, then like, sure, I'll stand at the top of the stairs. Like, I probably wouldn't, not knowing I'm in a horror movie, I'd be like, yeah, fine, whatever. Like, I'll stand there and then you'll agree with me it's creepy and then we can go. So far, all her choices are quite, like, they make sense to me. Like, everything she does makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Which, a little later into the movie, not so much. But at this point, I was totally on board with everything she did. He goes down to the basement. He's gone a really friggin' long time. And she's like, Keith, Keith. And he's not shouting back. And then she, like, finds that he's, like, gone further in. And when she comes, like...
Yeah, there's, like, more corridors.
There's a lot more corridor. Like, it becomes, like, stone, dark, like, tunnels.
Labyrinth.
And she hears him shouting for help from the labyrinth.
Which is horrible. And shout out to the actress who plays Tess. She does really good screaming in fear.
Yeah.
Screaming. And all she's saying is Keith, but, like, you can... like taste the sweat on her forehead, the way she's performing these yells.
Yeah.
Like, so,
and it's like she's it's that thing where you find it hard to almost talk because you're so scared, but like, you know, you have to shout, so it's like a strain coming out.
Hoarse, like, yeah, it's so good. So we're going down these horrible stone corridors. There's cages, there's shit everywhere, and finally we bump into Keith, and he is fucking freaked. And he claims something's bit him and that there's something in the tunnels with them, which is unsurprising.
And she's going, we have to fucking go. And he's saying, no, not that way. Like, the thing that was after me was that way.
So we go the other way and immediately bump into the thing that was after him, which I did not see. I was looking at the screen at this point. I was doing my classic, the cinema carpet.
It's
so
fascinating. What's on the back of these seats? So a big scary thing comes looming out of the darkness, and it's a deformed, incredibly tall woman, and essentially everything that we've built up for the last half an hour of it being a psychological thriller about whether or not you can trust Keith and being a woman alone with a stranger is kind of ripped away, and the mother, as we call her, smashes Keith's head so many times against the stone wall.
And with it, all of the preconceptions of this movie. So, R.I.P. to that.
R.I.P. Keith.
To those themes.
Commence Act 2.
Tess looks in shock up at the beast. And we cut to sunny LA.
Woo! And there's a funky pop tune on.
Justin Long is there, who I did not know was in this movie, so I turned to Flo and say, Justin Long's in this movie! I love Justin Long! He's doing a great bit, singing along to this song in his open-top car, and what we didn't get with the horror movie that Flo watched the day before that made her freak out, that we do get here is all of the tension that had just been building and building and building has been crashed down, so we are relieved, and we can
which is my favorite thing in horrors. As you know, I mean, I complain when a horror didn't give me a laugh after a scare. I'm like, that's not fair, that's the agreement. Like, you can scare me as much as you like, but then you have to like have Justin Long like driving in a convertible and singing.
Really good stuff. So we're introduced to this character, and immediately we're in the deep, where he gets a phone call that he's essentially fired off a new TV project because of alleged accusations that he has sexually abused one of the lead actresses. Very topical, very frightening in itself. But we've just had lovely Keith's brains smashed against the wall, so immediately I'm like, oh god, I believe women, but like, oh no,
oh my god,
like,
his life's gonna be ruined.
God, is Justin gonna be okay? Because I'm immediately on board because it's Justin Long. Which I think is so clever, and maybe that was me very much leaning into the movie and the directions that they wanted me to go with understanding these characters. But again, I was immediately at a crossways where I was like, oh, believe women, but like, I didn't believe Keith, and now he's dead. Yeah. So maybe I'll believe Justin Long, who's insistent that he did nothing wrong. The whole time, I don't know if you were thinking this as well at this time, but I was like, ooh, how is he gonna end up at the Barbarian?
I know, it's like, I mean, there was a moment where I was like, God, it's like 2 movies for the price of 1. Like, are we just done with the house? It's like so far from what we'd just been watching that I didn't even know if they were going to go back to the house.
And I assumed they would, because I was like, otherwise...
Yeah, like, what the hell was that woman doing? Like, they just never explained that.
Yeah. I need you to tell me that Tess is okay. And as it started to reveal, and we get, so he's not on this project anymore, he's losing all of his money, and they talk about some of his properties. So I was like, it was an Airbnb. This will be the guy that owns the Airbnb. And that is what is happening. So long story short, Justin Long ends up in Detroit, which is where the Airbnb is, the Barbarian house is.
He gets in, he's like, someone's shit is here. Like, there's someone's toothbrush, like, charging on the floor, and there's a suitcase here. He calls them up, the rental management people. They say, no one's rented out that flat in, like, 3 weeks. And you're like, oh, shit, it's been 3 weeks since Tess was in that cellar.
Which, again, is really good. Like, the whole character of Bonnie over the phone, who's sort of in charge of the admin side of the Airbnb, how she didn't pick up the phone for Tess. She wasn't helpful with Tess and Keith's predicament. Now she's not being very helpful with Justin Long and his predicament. And it's all believable stuff, because you've all been on the phone with somebody that doesn't want to help you, or can't help you because their job doesn't let you, and it's too complicated now and everything's tied up. And Justin Long's on the phone to his mother, who of course is also like, I know you would never do anything like that to a woman, like, you're my baby boy and I love you. And Justin Long hangs up because he's got an important work call coming in, and then he drops the F-bomb immediately. And we were like, no, he's trash, he's a trash person. And we immediately go to a scene where he essentially admits that he did, in fact, sexually harass, abuse the young actress in his TV pilot.
Yes, in his own turn. I don't think he even, like, it's an interesting bit in the sense that that is what we as the audience now know happened, because we know what she's accusing him of, and then we hear his version and it lines up. But when he's talking to his friend, he's like, well, yeah, she took a bit of convincing. It was a really kind of good portrayal. Like, he's a fascinating character in that he has done something that's very bad. He doesn't really seem to understand the full scope of what he's done wrong until he's in a situation where he thinks he might die, and then he's like, oh my god, I'm a terrible person. And even then, that realization doesn't, like, he's just a selfish person, essentially.
Yeah, really, really nicely written again, really nicely written character. And then, of course, Justin Long has to find himself in the basement. He sees the mirror, and he sees the room, and then he sees the stone corridors. And remember, an hour and 40 minutes earlier, we had this experience and this unveiling with Tess, and it was horrifying and scary and awful. And then Justin Long immediately sits down to Google if he can charge more for his Airbnb square meters under his property, and it is so funny. I cannot even describe it to do it justice.
It's a wonderful break from, like, classic horror to, like, a really great sort of satirical moment. He starts measuring the murder corridor with a tape measure to work out how many square meters he can say it has, and then he finds, like, the extra room down into the creepy stone tunnels, and he's like, fuck yes, like, there's so much space between this. It's like, oh, it's just such a funny scene. And, like, you can argue, I mean, I've heard some people say, like, that's not a logical thing to do, but you're like, right, one, he doesn't know he's in a horror, and two, like, we are being a bit silly and satirical here in terms of, like, the movie is sort of discussing the difference between male and female experience of, like, what's scary and what's not, and it's really cool and interesting to see a sort of jokey, like, man side of it, where he finds the tunnel that's so, like, frightened Tess to such an extreme degree that, like, her voice was shaking and she was crying, and he's like, oh yes, real estate,
ching ching.
My favorite scene from the movie, just really completely funnily done, like, dragged out in a great way that, like, it eventually gets tense because you know there's a little murder or a big murder woman down there, big old powerful murder woman, but, like, it's you're laughing but you're also, like, cringing because you're like, oh my god, like, you're gonna die for this, you know, finding a square meter of your home.
So we're getting deeper and deeper into the corridors, and as you say, we're getting more and more aware that we're hopefully, like, potentially gonna find Keith's body. We're hopefully going to come across Tess. And again, as we were getting deeper and deeper, the cinema carpet caught my attention again. So I can't quite recall how he bumps into
So
them
he finds a room where there seems to be a place where someone sleeps, and it's playing on the TV this sort of very old 80s video about breastfeeding, and it's telling about how to breastfeed a baby. And then he's holding the tape measure in his hand, and it suddenly gets like yanked from the other end and falls out of his hand and goes like skittering away down the corridor. Great moment, because you've taken a joke and it's suddenly become like a sort of weapon for the horror.
Like a horror prop, yeah.
Yeah. And then the mother comes looming out of the darkness, and I guess she grabs him. I also at this point had my hands largely in front of my eyes, but she dumps him in this pit, and he is there in the pit, and he turns and boom, jump scare, Tess is there, and she's like,
"It's Tess!
Tess, our lovely, lovely Tess."
And we're like, "Welcome back, Tess.
Yay.
We missed you." So that's lovely. And then really horrific, like almost body horror-esque moments follow, where the mother, her lank long hair is like falling through the bars at the top of this pit, and she hands them, I don't know where
the
she
most
got this.
disgusting. I mean, I think that might be
so
what they had in the
awful.
80s. I think like it's basically a bottle for feeding a baby, but it like it's just, it looks friggin' disgusting. And then they've added like hair to it and shit.
It's that like,
it's like,
yeah,
it's like
this
almost
is that,
gooey
like, Roger
looking.
Rabbit cartoon.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like turned horrific with the prop usage. And another really lovely moment of like different reactions, where the mother brings this disgusting thing down into the pit, and the reason Tess is alive, we find out, is because she just does as she's told. Which is what you're told to do when you are mugged and when you are accosted and all of these things. You just play it safe.
And it's also a sort of like it's going into that aspect that a lot of women talk about their experiences, where if someone approaches you, you know, let's say someone's talking to you and they seem like sort of aggressive, and you don't know if they're going to hurt you or not, and people will say, "Oh, why don't you just like tell them to fuck off?" And you're like, "Well, because I need to be polite and like unassuming, and like that's my best chance of not being hurt here, is if I sort of like just allow this person to talk to me, and like just be as sort of calm about it as you can."
It's such a real experience. I literally had it walking from the train station at midnight last night, and there was a car parked with the lights on, and a man was sitting inside the car. And as I walked towards the car, I like took my headphones out, and I literally was holding my vape in the pocket of my coat, and a thought went through my head where I was like, if I vape, is he going to have
be something they'll comment on
that's negative, that's going to cause him to decide to come out and grab me and bundle me into the car? So I didn't vape, just in case it potentially angered the man that was potentially deciding whether or not to bundle me into his car or not.
And to be clear, that's could be like, in general, completely normal person, no reason to be fearful of them. But the point is, you treat everything as a potential threat because you've heard about these moments where someone has like made a misjudgment, or not even they've done anything wrong, but like moments where someone's been a victim, and so you just are trying to be in that wary space all the time.
Neutral, just completely. And that is what Tess is doing. She is just being a placating neutral. She says to Justin Long, she's like, suck on the bottle, just fucking do it, man,
just do what she
fucking
wants.
Suck on the bottle. And he does not do it. And he keeps like batting it away, and again, as an audience member, you're just like, fucking drink the drink, Justin.
The horrible, horrible
like you,
bottle.
But I don't want you to die in the way that Keith did. And didn't you read about the actress's experience filming that film?
she was laughing about it and basically saying that like it started off as an already gross bottle, and then they just like kept adding hair to it, and she was like, this is getting ridiculous, how much hair is on this horrible thing I have to suck on. So yeah, sounded like a fun experience. And then the mother, because he is not being obedient in the way that Tess does, she drags him out of the pit because she's so freaking strong. And she drags him to the room that has the VHS playing, and she attempts to breastfeed him in a very, very gross scene.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because when he's pulled out, you immediately think his head's going to get smashed. But actually, no, the logic of the mother is that, oh, baby doesn't want the bottle, so baby must want breastfeeding still.
It's an interesting, because that's kind of our first moment understanding that, like, our first shot of the mother is her performing a massive act of violence, and then this is the scene that sort of starts to portray her reasoning and what's going on in her head, and that she's attempting to mother the people she finds. This is one of the few moments, I know I've discussed it with you, it doesn't make much sense to me why she does that to Keith when she's willing to put up with. All I can think is maybe when he was grabbing at Tess, she thought he was like attacking her and therefore did that. But like that is one of those small moments where it's almost like the logic isn't important. It's just they did it because it would be a scary scene.
It's really interesting. We've talked about this a lot, where we're going to slightly go back now, to Keith's death, where if you think about what was happening from Tess's point of view, you couldn't hear Keith for ages. Then you hear him screaming a lot because, as we find out later, he thinks something's bit him.
Yeah, we've had many discussions about this. Like, why would she bite him? And so we thought, well, she can't have bit him because that's not like... Basically, as we get to know the mother, shall we just sort of say what her deal is now?
Yeah, because and I think this is what's so great about these movies. All of these characters are so fully fleshed out that we can sit here and be like, well, that's very out of character.
Yeah, that's not in character of this. Like, you wouldn't be like, that's not very in character for like Jason Voorhees.
Yeah.
But so it's established that she is she's been kept down there in the cellar. She's a victim of sexual assault and violence against her. She's a result of like intergenerational what's the word, inbreeding, where Frank, who we meet through a flashback in the 80s, was abducting women, raping them, and then raping the children that they had. It's suggested that the reason she is so deformed is that she's, the result of incest.
Severe incest.
It's kind of, again, that's one of those things that is a bit wobbly for me. My understanding of incest is that it's like you're at risk, much more at risk of getting like sort of congenital defects because like the recessive genes are coming together. It's not like you're going to become superpowered, which she is, I would argue. She's incredibly so strong
and monstrous, for want of a better word. Like truly, like so tall. Like actually won the genetic lottery here.
Yeah, like it turns out that incest is the method of how you produce like superpowered like Avengers, essentially. Beings. Like she's got many problems, but she's also like, she can literally lift up Justin Long, like by
the hair almost.
Yeah.
We know she goes out at night, roaming the streets. She's not completely kept to the cellar, but she's probably in her 40s now and would have spent a lot of her young life. She sort of should look more like the things from The Descent. In theory, because she spent a lot of her life in like a cavernous labyrinth.
Or surely she should still look kind of human. She should just have a load of health problems. I'm also... Again, this is like... Sorry, I'm getting into my things that don't make sense about this sort of horror movie where...
Silly horror movie.
But like, okay, just one more complaint about the sort of incest thing. She looks like she's 70. I was thinking she was like 40. But let's... like absolute youngest she could be, if we're not even looking at how she looks, we're just like, okay, she's like a woman, fully grown woman. Youngest she can be is like 20, and that would be ridiculous if they're suggesting she's 20, but whatever, let's say she's 20. It was the 1980s when he was abducting women. Oh, I suppose he could have been, it implied to me that he was doing that in the 1980s. I suppose he could have been doing it for decades beforehand, but in that case, I don't really know why we were shown a flashback to the 1980s. But if we're saying that's when it really started happening, Reagan's in power, so absolute earliest it can be is 1981. There's only really one generation you can do that, like possibly two, assuming that girls are fertile from like 10. Like if for her to be 20, like really he could only have had a child with a child of his like once, maybe twice. I'm just like, I know it doesn't matter, but I'm just getting a bit into like, you know, there are royal families from the past who have done that for generations and generations. And I mean, don't get me wrong, you get like, who is it? It's like, I think it's like Charles II of Spain or something, who was like the most fucked up looking dude. So that's my medical opinion. But like, and that was the result of like generational inbreeding and stuff. But like, I'm just saying, like, you know, 20 years of that, I don't know if you can make this superpowered gangrenous woman, but you know, what do I know?
Agreed. And we're also tying into that every child that he has with a woman is also a girl.
Yeah. yeah. I don't know, it's confusing. And all of them survive despite like presumably having these like, you know, congenital issues and stuff.
Yeah, almost definitely nutritional issues, and because it's sort of implied that he doesn't feed them properly and all of this. So
a bit of a weird one. So that's my little complaint about how that doesn't make sense. But it does make for a wonderful breastfeeding scene, which is really scary
and really interesting, because it is real body horror, in the sense of like, it's a grotesque figurine, and it's what's horrifying about it, which is what I kind of love about it, is that it's sexual assault. Fundamentally, that's what's frightening about this scene. It's not that it's a big scary monster trying to breastfeed. It's a form of sexual assault, like, which is what Justin Long has done to the actress. So there's a skewed sense of justice here, but a little bit of me was like,
yeah, it doesn't feel good, does it, Justin?
Yeah, it also ties into this conversation that arguably has been going on for years and years and years, but has sort of had a renaissance recently, of this idea of like the old woman as a horror trope, particularly the naked old woman as a horror trope. And just to circle back at this point to that point we made where Bill Skarsgård, you're fundamentally stronger than I am, so it's frightening for me to stay here in this Airbnb in case you decide to be a weirdo and attack me. And it wouldn't be frightening if it was the other way around and Tess wouldn't have let him in. So women don't have that, they're not usually stronger than men, they're not as fast often, and so are they as much as a threat as men? Somebody posed to me recently, like, would Halloween be frightening if they tried to do a modern remake where they made Michael Myers a woman? Like, would that be scary? And we think as well, this Halloween I really tried to think of female horror monsters, and you've got Kathy Bates in Misery, and the only reason she's able to have any power is because she literally incarcerates
and he's severely injured,
like wheelchair bound, so she has the upper hand. I think Asami in Audition also has to like drug a lot of I think that's her thing, isn't it? Doesn't she drug her victims?
She drugs them. And then most other ones I can think of are like ghosts and supernatural beings. Yeah,
maybe she counts as a sort of supernatural being, but we're like, canonically she is not.
No, she's a real person, an unlikely to actually exist real person, but yeah, she's a woman, but she is given the strength and speed of like the sort of, again, I'm putting it in quote marks, like man character, like a sort of Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees type, more sort of strong slashery character, I suppose.
People are trying to say that the argument doesn't count here because, as we've sort of mentioned, she's technically like 30 years old.
Yeah, like, so but you can't, like, that argument is weird because, like, she could be any age, but she looks like an old woman, like, and that's the point. It's not about like, well, if you read her Wikipedia, she's actually undeniably, 18 or whatever, like, because it's about how she looks. I mean, Samara is what, like 100, but you don't go like, oh, it's not about creepy little girls, it's about elderly women because she's technically 100.
Yeah, exactly. So, interesting. Go discuss. Go.
Go.
Whilst Justin Long is getting breastfed and served a little slice of Justice pie, darling Tess, is making her escape. Good for her.
Go.
I would be too scared to move. But she does it. She escapes. She runs through that corridor and she steps on a twig or something to alert the mother. So there's a bit of a chase. And she breaks out of the cellar window that she previously threw the key through to Keith. She breaks out of it. She gets out. And it's really interesting. We turn around and the mother is reaching through the window, like in daylight. And it's really interesting to see her having come out of the basement in daylight.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It was really odd to almost know that she existed in daytime. I know that sounds like you were like, oh, that's a real person. That's not like a monster that only comes out at night. Like, I now see she's a woman. She's just like the scariest woman to have ever existed.
And this is doubly confirmed by a character we forgot to mention earlier, do you know what, like, because we've talked about him so much, I've become accustomed to his face, and he's like my favorite character now because he makes not a single lick of sense. And I love him for it. He's such a horror movie character in that he's like a neighbor, if you will, a homeless man that lives on this neighborhood in Detroit and has done all of his life. And he's stopped up by the water tower in his little homeless shack, and he knows the dealings of the house, and he's there witnessing the monster with Tess, which is a wonderful moment as an audience member, because there's nothing worse than watching the person try and explain there's a thing, and everybody going, shut up, I don't believe you.
And he's
That's
like,
so
yeah,
annoying. So
that's that creepy woman
like,
who lives in that house. And you're like, oh my God, thank God that someone's like, thank God.
And we'd previously met him before doing another brilliant horror trope of she gets out the car and in the distance he is pelting towards her, which is just beautiful, because he easily could have like been waiting by the house for her, and as she got out of the car been like, hey,
yeah, hello, sorry to bother you,
but I just want to let you know that there is a creepy woman that lives in the basement of this house, and you probably shouldn't stay here, and I just thought I'd let you know while it's daylight, because she does come out at night time. I'm happy to talk you through the story, but I really suggest that we pack your bags and like we get out of here. I completely understand if you don't believe me, but like I'm really just trying to help you because I've watched too many people get eaten in this Airbnb.
But instead of doing that, he sprints full pelt at her, and then when she slams the door behind her, is like slamming, not even yelling anything. He's like, hey, little girl, get out of there!
As the audience member, you know that his wording is vague enough that he is trying to warn her to leave, which is lovely, but she is 100% taking it as like, don't you fucking try and turf me out of my lovely Airbnb, you homeless man.
Yeah.
So great stuff. And then he literally, like, ups exposition.
Oh my
of,
God,
like, she's not even the worst thing in that house, she's been here this many years, she's a product of this, blah 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 blah. Like, it's majestic. I mean, like, come live with me in my water tower.
If it's a joke, it's a funny joke. Like, I really couldn't work out if that bit was satirical. He's just a random homeless exposition man who knows everything that's ever happened to that monster, despite the fact that she lives in a cellar. He's like, yep, her dad's called this, and he's been raping women since the 80s, and she's a result of inbreeding, and that's, you know, and she comes out at night and she hunts rats and stuff, and then she goes back in there, but, you know, she feels this way about this, and her favorite color is this, and, you know, she's always wanted to go to Montreal or whatever the fuck he said. Like, he just goes on and on.
It's so good. And like, just now in my head, I've decided that he is an ex-cop that was working on the case of Frank, but already my
well, he didn't do a very fucking good job, did he?
But never got quite enough evidence to bring.
He was like, I know all this for a fact, but I don't, you know, but we can't like get a warrant to look in his house.
I wish this is the thing. Maybe it's that. Maybe if we were to look at his costume, it might be a dishevelled old cop.
No, I'm not fucking buying it. He's just a man who bursts into existence to tell us, and he's like, here come, like let me walk you to this gas station so the plot can continue.
Writing a book.
He's writing a book. I would love that. He should be like a novelist who's like, or he shouldn't have known as much. We already had one flashback. There's no reason we couldn't have had another flashback that established who she was. But instead it's like, oh, this guy will tell you.
Or if he was also in the flashback, maybe, because he feels so separate to the rest of the movie. Everyone else in the movie is conjoined in some way, beautifully unfolded, because just at this moment we're just told she's not even the worst thing in that house. So immediately I'm thinking, oh my god, like what surprises do we have in store? Barbarian, this is fun. And then we got our lovely flashback with Frank, and it's again really nice stuff, really like very Ryan Murphy, like your day-to-day serial killer puts his little boiler suit on, like really great use of camera again, where we go shopping with him and we're getting plastic sheets and rope and things like that, and we're like, this is so fucking suspicious. And this woman's just like, plastic sheets, they'll be down aisle 4, and you're like, it's clearly good. Oh, I forgot you don't know you're in a horror movie.
Yeah.
So it's really good stuff. Really ominous dialogue of like, oh, when's the baby coming? How old's your baby? And he's like, oh, it's not due yet. And you're like, okay, so he's got a baby on the way. That's weird. And obviously you're going to find out later that it's because he's murdering and kidnapping and raping people.
I mean, you keep saying murdering. I've no doubt he did murder some people to stop it getting, but like, we know he needs to have the babies. So like...
But snuff, there's the snuff films.
See, you keep saying that, but then it was never actually established. Like, we know he films himself raping them, and obviously there were so many tapes he must have killed some women. Okay. But I'm just like, I think he was keeping them captive quite often, as opposed to like murdering every woman. I'm sure he did murder a good amount of them. Don't think it was his primary.
Like, if they died in captivity, I think
that's you're quite right. That's still murder. Yeah.
but yeah, I take your point. And there's a really spooky moment where we're in the car. The camera is like in the car with him, and we're helping him stalk and follow this woman home.
And he almost looks at the camera. Horrible. He doesn't quite, but
yeah,
he like turns and looks sort of past the passenger seat, and there's a brief moment where you're like, oh, he's like looking at me like, I don't want to be part of this.
Yeah, don't involve me. And you really do feel like that. It's very good stuff. And we follow this lovely woman with this lovely yellow dress, and we go into her house, and it's the fucking 80s, so you can just be like, ding dong, fucking Avon.
I'm a waterman.
Like, come in. And like, you're like, oh god. And again, we had a laugh at this, where he goes into the bathroom and he like unlocks the window, with the implication being that he's going to break in later. But like, if either of us lived in that house, by nightfall that window would have been double checked.
Yeah,
and double
I was like,
locked.
Jokes on him, how often I check that my windows are locked. He'd be so annoyed. He'd be like, oh, what the fuck, like trying to get in the bathroom.
This ties into a lovely point. This is probably my favorite thing about this movie. It's such a silly little point, but I'm obsessed with it. She's in the yellow dress, and later on, as we'll find out, we see the yellow dress again, and then we see a VHS of like essentially her murder, and it's a brilliant moment of insinuation and visual storytelling, because in this movie we do not see a single act of violence against a woman, other than I think possibly at the end.
Yes, that kind. I mean, even that is not. It's not like the most horrible things that happen in the movie are never actually shown on screen.
I find that so exciting, because lots of horrible things happen. It came up with the 18 rating, and it was like gore, and both of us were like, oh no.
Yeah, it was really nice. Like, I liked that, like, there's a history in horror of violence against women being a sort of titillating thing, and any of the nudity and violence against women and stuff, like, it was horrific and largely unseen, and like it was the implication of it that was scary. None of it was there to like sort of just make the movie more entertaining for viewers.
Yeah. So really, really, really enjoyed that.
Before we get out of the flashback, real quick, I just thought it was interesting, and I wondered if they were sort of making a statement here with regards to, like we were saying, that woman allows the man into her house to look around her bathroom, and then he goes and she's like, cool, bye, and then she doesn't lock her window after. It's interesting because Tess, our modern day woman, is so cautious at all times. And I think it was sort of an interesting thing about whether like women now feel like are more savvy to that, feel more threatened, whether that's rightfully or not. You know, it's in the same way that people say, oh, back in the 80s, no one used to lock their doors. And like now you're like, well, why the fuck not? Like, you should lock your door. And it seemed that like awareness of safety and the fact that she needed to take care of herself, like she had that a lot more than our 80s woman character.
That's such a good point. And again, that's all done through visual storytelling. When Tess is first in the Airbnb, there are so many close-up shots of her shutting and locking the door of the bathroom, shutting and locking the door of the bedroom. And then the one time she doesn't do it is after she's had a lingering shot with Keith, and it's like, oh, are they gonna kiss? Oh no, we're going to bed. And I expect, because we've had it so like a repetition, and I was like, and now we shut and lock the door, and then she didn't
do it, and
I was like, oh god. And immediately I felt unsafe, and rightly so, because 2 hours later that door is going to be creaking open in the middle of the night, and it's like, it's so good. And you're absolutely right. And then the mirror image of that woman in the 80s, yeah, really, really interesting. And we just get him opening up the cellar door, and we just hear the screams of the women from the basement, which is horrible
indeed.
And then we're back to the modern day, where Tess has dragged herself to the gas station. She uses the phone. She has clearly been through the fucking wars. And it didn't even occur to me, and I know she says it at the time. Police people turn up, policemen really turn up, and she's like, I'm not on crack. And I think that's the implication going forward, that they're meant to think that because we're in Detroit, because we're in this neighborhood full of
she's filthy in an abandoned neighborhood. She looks an absolute mess, and she's hysterical when she's telling them her story. I do understand why they are like, all right then, whatever, and then don't act on it. They're also like the most comically shit cops ever. And again, I sort of got the impression that it was trying to make a sort of believe women type statement, where it was like, you know, you're just thinking she's crazy, you're not trusting her with her experience. Little heavy-handed maybe, but it kind of had to happen, because otherwise you don't get Act 3.
On the nose. Completely. And also, because at the time I was very angry about that. I was like, this is like those cops in the first episode of fucking Bates Motel that are literally next to a corpse in the bath, and they're like, everything seems tip-top around here, and you're like, come on! So I was a bit annoyed at them, but actually now I'm thinking of the context. Again, like, I think as a screenwriter I would have been like, I've put enough in here that you think that these cops think that in this abandoned neighborhood full of crackheads with no ID, she cannot be trusted, and all that she's seemingly done is broken a window of a nice place, which, you know, might happen as a thing a lot.
I don't know why they thought she'd confess to that, and that, like, you know, it's a little like, I assume they just think she's off
so
her head,
earnest.
But like she seems quite, and they threatened to take her to the police station, and again that was a moment where I was like, Tess, like, fucking go for it. Like, hell yeah.
Have a shower there.
Yeah, like, have a rest and then calmly explain to them, like, there's a monster in a basement.
This is the thing, because we start getting into, like, Brave Tess. And I love Brave Tess. I think she's a great final girl. But I would not be Brave Tess. I would be Tess that goes, you know what? Take me in, officers. I'll have a shower. I'll have a change of clothes. I'll have a sleep. And then we can come back and save Justin Long tomorrow. And I know, and this is again so interesting, it's because I'm an audience member that's like, the sexual harasser can stay in the basement
like,
for a day or
he's
two.
not
like,
worth
he's
it,
fine.
Tess. Whereas she obviously doesn't know that. And also, I, to be clear, I'm not saying like having sexually harass someone means you deserve to be sexually assaulted in a basement for the rest of your life.
Justin Long doesn't deserve to die.
But you know, it's you as the audience are more like, well, he's not really that likable a character, so like whatever, leave him. So to explain that she's then going to go back and save him and go back into the cellar on her own. I kind of was interested by, this is the moment where I start to struggle with what Tessa's motivations are. I think she's just brave and moral and wants to save him where she couldn't save Keith. It's still kind of...
I think we're really meant to remember Keith.
Yeah, I think, she's hurting from what happened to Keith, and that's probably why. And she's also like, it was absolutely terrible, and I'd want someone to come for me, and so I understand all that. I think I'd probably go get a gun or something, but you know, like, that's her, she just needs to rush back. I had sort of, it's interesting that early on, they sort of discussed the fact that Tess was in it's not really established if it was abusive or not, but in a sort of toxic relationship with someone who she sort of only just managed to leave. And like, I was intrigued as to whether it's like, it's her feeling pulled back to this like dangerous situation, that like part of it is that where she can't like step away and do what's right for her. She has to like stick with something if she feels it's the right thing to do. But to be honest, there's any number of like motivations you can put on her, because I don't think, I mean, they don't explain why she's going back, because I don't think they ever could, because she has to do it for the movie, but it's just batshit, and I recommend anyone listening doesn't go into the spooky cellar to save someone you don't know.
I think you're right though. I think whilst they may not be satisfying, we've listed like quite a number of reasons as to why she might be going back, which I think, again, if I was writing this script, I'd be like, that'll do.
Yeah, like come on, use your brain.
You can't fight me on that. Like, we all know she has to go back. So she returns, and we know. And what annoyed me was that we were told that the mother roams the streets at night, and it's daytime when the police are there, and then we cut to nighttime.
Why did she go? But then maybe she's like,
it's like she chills out.
Yeah, she just sort of sits around like waiting for her to leave
until sundown.
And I suppose she wants to be in there when the mother is out of there, but also I'm not fucking going in there at night. Like, all my instincts are like, no.
Yeah, you cannot make me. So we break in and we get the car keys, and we're in the car, and the mother storms out of the front door, and we ram into her. Again, like this supernatural being that cannot die, seemingly, because we ram her into the side of the building.
How does incest achieve that? That's it just doesn't make any
Rock
sense.
Solid organs. Like, incest is good, actually. It gives you superhuman beings. Because of course there's a brilliant moment where we leave the mother's corpse hanging on the hood of the car, and we go in and we save Justin Long, who we'll come back to in a second.
Yes.
But of course, when we step out of the house again, she's gone.
Whoa.
Where is she? She's probably right behind you. In the meantime, Justin Long has met the thing that's way worse than the mother living in the house, which is that Frank's still kicking about. Horrible Frank from the 80s.
Yes.
Surrounded by all of his snuff movies, his VHSs that he watches for shits and gigs, surrounded by like beer and cigarettes, living his best life down in the basement, in a room that the mother is too afraid to go into.
Lovely moment. Loved that when he keeps looking back down when Justin Long, or AJ as his character is called, is fleeing her. He keeps looking back down the corridor, and you can see glimpses of her following behind him, and then he gets to this door and he looks back at her and he sees her like hesitate and then like step away. And it gives you, it's a great, like, it's a real thrill of a moment where you're like, oh my god, like, what's behind the door that scares her? Here. And it's Frank.
That was another moment that I was looking at the car. And then you told me about it afterwards, and I was like, that sounds like a really lovely moment. Too bad I missed it.
Wasn't looking, thought she was going to run at him.
Was not looking. I don't know what it is. It's like monsters in corridors. I just can't deal.
Yeah, very scary.
what we said at the time was what was really nice about this monster mother is that when she first arrives, you're like, that's scary. And then once you see her properly, especially in daylight, you're like, cool, I know what you look like. I can deal with how you look. You're not going to be a shock to my senses anymore. Yeah. So I can watch the movie with you in it. For some reason, my brain doesn't click with that. So even though I can watch her in long scenes where she's doing stuff, when she's like running at people, I can't watch it. I'm too frightened.
It's fair enough. Like, it's, yeah, because it gives you that jolt regardless if you know that she's going to do it or you know how she looks. It's like, like it's just your brain doesn't have enough time to be like, oh, actually, that's okay. I can handle that. So, yeah, I get it. But, yeah that was a cool moment, I must say.
Again, this movie plays with your perceptions of, like, right and wrong and justice and injustice. And it's like a decrepit old man on a bed, and your immediate thing is like not quite sympathy because you know immediately who he is, but you're like
this is it. This is
he's not hurting anyone. He's like just dying here. He's just living here and not living really.
And yet he's done such terrible things to his daughter that she is too afraid to go near unless she's summoned by that bell that was hanging in the corridor.
Really stupid in that, like, again, like, how has this man never been convicted? He's sitting in a pool of evidence.
Yeah, he lives in a room with all his VHSs of him torturing women, and he's just like chilling out.
And they're like clothing.
And again, the homeless man fucking knows what happened. So like, what?
But this place exists. So like, did he stay in the Airbnb one time and then like made it his life's work to just stay there
get
and
into
warn
it?
people?
Maybe he went down and had a chat with Frank. Like, who bloody knows what happened? But
yeah, maybe he's like a journalist. Like, this is the thing. Like, I feel like they could have made the homeless man any number of other type of person. He kind of had to be homeless so no one would believe him. But he needed to be... I wanted him to be an ex-something, so he had justification for his knowledge.
Yeah, we talked a lot about how well-developed so many of the characters are. I would say that, and I'm so sorry to call him this, but Homeless Man, because I don't know what his character's name is.
Andre, maybe?
Andre?
Yeah, I think it's Andre.
Andre.
Looking at the actor.
Okay.
Andre.
So, Andre, yeah, he is not a well-developed character, I would argue. He's kind of there to tell us what's going on and to provide a couple laughs along the way, I would say.
Yeah.
But yes, really cool moment meeting Frank in the basement. AJ witnesses the crimes that, like, the videos and like comments to him like how sick he is. It's interesting because again, it's like two sexual abusers meeting, and obviously they're completely different levels of crimes. Like, you know, one is like a horrific thing that's been going on for 40 years or 40 years. And then AJ is AJ. But it's sort of an interesting moment. Before really he saw the video, he felt that the guy was a victim, and he said to him, oh, don't you worry, I'll get the police here, and they'll be like swarming down here any minute now. And in response, Frank shoots himself because he doesn't wish to have to face, you know, justice for his crimes because he's a dickhead,
which is something that AJ
also really does not want to do. So yeah, like interesting, you know, two very different characters, but they have the same through line. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Getting on to my dealing with practicalities again, it's established that the mother, when she goes out at night, she captures rats to eat. So has Frank just being like fed rats on occasion? And if so, is he proud of his life's work?
Yeah, the room is sort of filled with, from my memory, maybe I'm projecting.
I feel like he's got drink there and stuff, right?
And like maybe like crisp packets, but like it's not like she's popping to Aldi.
Well, that's the thing. She can't.
I
mean, she doesn't put on clothes ever, so I don't know how she's gonna go.
So they won't let her in out.
Yeah, like, they check on the door.
So like possibly, which like, you know, this is the life that you've built for yourself. This is the decisions that you've made, and this is where they've led you with your monster-let child feeding you like probably live or at least raw rat. and drinking beer and pissing in cans and rewatching
Where
your
does she get
like,
the beer from?
snuff movies.
Maybe he brews
Unless
his
she
own
steals
beer.
them.
But where would you go to steal enough beer for your?
I mean, there's the gas station nearby. Maybe
She'd have to go inside, and then they'd have her on CCTV.
She's not very subtle, is she?
No,
she's not like
she's incredibly tall and
lumbering,
and again naked
like...
and kind of green.
and can't speak, which
can't
is interesting. She can say like Baba,
yeah,
and like boop. Oh, she does a boop.
Oh, cute.
We forgot to mention the boop. That was the moment that I was like, I'm on board with this.
Yeah,
like, I sympathize.
She's
with
the
this
protagonist.
she's my hero. She boops Justin Long, and it's
super
so cute.
Yeah, very cute. And it's one of the nice moments that makes her such a sympathetic character, even though she is also even though Frank is the true like villain of the piece, she is obviously the monster of the piece.
Yeah, that we hang out with. Complex, interesting, layers, themes. What's it trying to say? We don't know. We'll probably go into that. And so Frank's killed himself, and Justin Long is like, what the fuck? And it's given him food for thought, because Tess comes and gets him. They bump into Andre, and they escape, and they're in the water tower, and they're there. And that's where Andre is truly like, here's what Frank's deal is, here's what the mother's deal is, I know everything, don't ask me why. And then he has the best line in the entire movie, where they're like, well, how long have you been here? Does she not know about this place? And he's like, I've been here 30 years and she's never once found me. Mother finds them. And the movie gives you just enough of a moment to like crack a smile as you happily wait for the mother to then immediately burst
it's
it
such
through the
a
walls.
again, that's why I'm like, is he just a purely satirical character? He turns out he's like, for some reason I know all this stuff, also I behave in ways that kind of exist just to entertain the audience, like I run at her to give you a scare, even though that's not logical. I'm totally chill about the fact that there's an evil woman, or not evil, but you know, monstrous woman in the house. I somehow know who Frank is. Like, he's just there, like he's almost like a cardboard cutout who it's like, I say all the things I have to, and then wonderful moment, he's like, dramatic irony. And then she breaks in and she kills him.
She rips his arm off and beats him to death with it. It's so good.
It was really good.
It was so good. We were like, oh, this is what they meant by gore. I wonder if you would have talked to Zach Kreger, if he would have some insight and was like, I wanted to write, or I decided to write a character that was just like a complete, massive, ridiculous homage to how stupid horror movies are, because it also meant that I could sew together my script. Yeah,
I did wonder if it was a specific reference to something, but if it is, then I don't know what it is.
And it's sort of trying to do what like Scream does this very delicately and nuancedly and cleverly and well done, and it's tight, whereas Barbarian's more sort of stitched together like something that the mother would make out of wool, you know? And this character is the needle and thread almost of that. And again, like, I love it so much that I'm happy for it to be a little monster of a movie that doesn't quite work or make sense on a sort of logical level, because it's saying so many interesting things, and it's not really coming down on any side of anything. It's just sort of posing, sort of like, isn't this interesting? And you're like, it is,
definitely.
Which I really appreciate in a movie. Other people would much prefer for the movie to like specifically say a concrete thing and have that.
Because from this I really got, there's not a specific meaning. There's a few things that it explores, and it's certainly not pro incest or sexual assault or anything, but it's just kind of like, here's a thought, like, it doesn't, you know. And a few things it does are kind of I'd say are nuanced in terms of its discussion of like women's experience versus men's experience, but also that's what it's doing. Like, it's kind of proudly unnuanced in that it's like, oh, this is kind of interesting, discuss.
Yeah, which I love. And like, I think the reason that people keep going back to see this movie, and the reason that it got the cinematic release that it eventually got, which I don't think it was ever intended to get, and why there's such a big hype about it online, is because you come away and you can't stop talking about it, and there's so much to say about it. Whereas if it's like a neat little tight nutshell of a movie, you're like, that was great. It was really well done. Whereas this is like, ooh, it's so open-ended and like interesting in so many different ways. So we're into the final bit of our movie.
We actually just missed one point that I do feel might, is that when Tess came down to rescue AJ had a gun, the gun that Frank had used to kill himself, and not seeing that it was her, he shot her. And then he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And he does get them both out of there.
Yes.
But it's just notable that then when they're both talking to, I've already forgotten his name, Andre, then he sort of makes a speech about how he is in fact a bad person and that he wants to be a good person and he wants to change and that he feels responsible for having hurt Tess so badly, and that he wants to fix it. And then when the mother breaks in, I would do the same, but it's an interesting moment where suddenly all his morals are dropped. He runs ahead of the woman he shot and basically leaves her like limping behind him as they go up the water tower.
Tess again is still so amiable in these moments where she's like, it was an accident.
She's so forgiving.
Like, didn't mean to. And again, I think it just, again, she's becoming quite a heavy-handed version of female experience.
Yes.
But it is true, you know, the man did just shoot you and does have a gun, and you know what? There's no point in being angry and there's no point in pointing fingers, because what's important is the bigger picture, that we're all safe because we're all nurturing and we're all together and we're a community. Whereas Justin Long is like, I need to be safe and I am all that matters. And that will come into play in 2 seconds. But yes, they're running up the water tower after he's had this whole, what's gonna look like it's gonna be a redemption arc. And as we get to the top of the water tower, the mother starts lunging for us, and Tess has finally made it to the top, and Justin Long is like, soz lol. He's like, you can buy me time, and shoves her off the water tower. Which is the only act of like violence, I would argue, we see in this movie.
Yeah, and even then played quite like, one, you don't see real violence, and also it was quite funny. It was really funny. It was horrible, but it was funny.
We just had this wonderful monologue, and then he immediately goes back on it.
He's like, actually, perfect. I want to live, so...
Which again, like, I'm sure if you were to do a poll of the audience watching, probably 50, maybe 50+% of the audience might be like, I would throw Tess off.
Oh my God, do you think?
I think so.
I would run ahead of Tess, probably.
I don't have that much faith in you.
But I wouldn't throw her off a water tower. I mean, for one, he was incredibly strong to be able to do that. But
you wouldn't throw her off.
I don't think I would. I can't even, to be honest, I wouldn't imagine that would work, to be honest. So then I'd be like, oh my God, it just like killed Tess and immediately got killed by the mother. Like, just be a really undecent death.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something a lot of people would have the thought of, like, oh, I could do this, but it might not work, and then there would be egg on my face, and then
and then there'd be egg on my face, and then I'd be dead.
And then I would be dead. So he throws Tess off, and there's a wonderful scene which got the only reaction from our audience in the cinema of the mother like Supermaning off the top of the water tower in slow-mo towards Tess. And we don't see it, but the implication is that she manages to catch her midair and twist her round, so then the mother falls to the floor and her head is bleeding out onto the pavement, and Tess is laying on top of the mother, having been saved, which is lovely. And Justin Long makes his way down the water tower, and oh shit,
Tess is
alive.
alive.
The final girl. Everyone forgot they were in a horror movie. Tess survived. So then Justin Long tries to backtrack.
Oh, it's so funny. You understand why I did that, right? I'm really sorry. I just don't think there was any other options. Imagine how embarrassed you would be having tried to sacrifice someone and they live.
It's so good. And you really see his, like, real nature coming through that's been there the whole movie. And he's like, you fell. I tried to grab you. Like, you were actually slipping. Like, I didn't even throw you. Like, it was you fell, you slipped. It was slippy up there. Tess manages to peel herself off the mother's body, and I don't think she gets to say anything.
No.
Because I'd have been interested as to
what
after
she
all
said.
that of like, it's an accident and stuff, you'd be like, fuck you.
Yeah.
But luckily, the mother is of course not dead because she's superhuman and she can survive anything. So she wakes up and very satisfactorily plunges both thumbs into AJ's eyeballs and crushes his little skull like a grape.
Yes.
She then wants to take Tess back with her, which, I don't know, it's so good because you're like, you have to die now, mother, because you've killed like 2 people in this movie alone.
Yeah.
Who knows
and
who
and
else
it's
you've
like
killed.
the end of the movie, so you gotta go.
Yeah.
And
you gotta go, baby girl.
Yeah. But that's really sad, and it's sad having Tess say, I know I can't go back with you, and with her limited means of communicating, you can really get how the mother just, you know, wants to be with Tess and wants to take care of her in her own way. Yeah, it was a really sort of sweet moment as she was dying.
It's kind of bittersweet, yeah, and I feel like the mother almost understands that Tess is about to kill her as well, in a way, and is like, okay,
yeah,
I'd rather you do it.
Yeah.
Or not, maybe that's...
It's hard to know. Yeah, I got the impression that maybe she doesn't understand that she's going to die, but she gets that Tess has to leave her, and she maybe, I think she sort of half understands what's happening. But she trusts Tess because she's her little baby.
Little baby that's done good, that's done all the right things. So Tess uses Chekhov's gun and shoots the mother. It's very sad, and like, you know, everyone in the audience is like, she's not dead. Like, she can survive being rammed into by a car, falling off a water tower. A little gun isn't gonna stop her.
But it does.
But we are to assume that the mother is now dead. She is dead. She doesn't get up. We don't have a Godzilla ending of Godzilla egg reveal. Like, the mother is dead. Like, it's like Bye Bye Baby or something. Like, kicks in.
Yeah, plays as Tess walks off Final Girl style.
I love it.
Yeah, fun film. I have some things about it, like, it wasn't, you know, the most masterful piece I've ever seen, but I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the first act for what it was, and then I enjoyed the second and third acts for what they were. It was interesting. I
completely
question if I'd been really, really excited to see it and I'd watched the trailer a bunch of times, maybe I would be disappointed, because I'd be like, well, that's not the movie I was promised. But it was a laugh, wasn't it?
It was, and even I, initially, when we first went for food, not disappointed, but there was like a discombobulated shift within me that was like, oh, I was expecting something quite, not highbrow, but like big and important, and that was just a really good movie. And so my expectations versus reality, 500 Days of Summer style, were a bit at odds with each other, and it took like a couple of hours for me to settle into what I'd just seen and then appreciate it. And I stand by my 4.5 stars out of 5, and I really love a project that is that. It's like someone like tried to do a thing and they like did it interestingly and they did it well. I love that it's his debut. Like, that gives him so much weight for me. I'm so much willing to be like, you know what, mate, like, you can do what you want. This is your first project.
Yeah,
like,
go crazy.
You did your best, and your best was really good. So like, well done. Like, good for you. Love the cast. Like, when I see, it's like a lot of my favorite Disneys are ones that are like massively flawed compared to like really like tight, like I'm like, it's good, but it's so tight that it's almost boring. Like, it's like, I love things with like a bit of a flaw, because it just makes it a bit more interesting and edgy. I don't know, maybe that's like silly and
no, I can see that, yeah,
or like dumb of me, but like I like seeing cracks in things, and this has cracks. Andre is a big old crack in the middle of this movie, but I love him for it.
Yeah, there are a few logical flaws with it from my point of view. In general, I'm willing to accept those things, but there were a few bits where I was like, like, because you have explained the motivations of characters so well, like, please God, explain how this happened or how this happened. There's a tiny part of me as well that's like, she's a really cool monster, but I mean, I suppose it's not unlike other movie monsters where they've formed from a tragedy. Like Samara was a little girl who I think was like drowned or whatever in a well, and Mike Myers was, you know, he had that very sad moment where he killed his babysitter. I guess that one doesn't really count because he'd already done that. But yeah, like I don't remember what happened to Jason. Did he drown?
I don't know. Was he like bullied? And and then he got like drowned because it's his mum in the. I've not actually seen Friday the 13th. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Freddy Krueger was
really
of
wet,
course horribly burned by the townspeople.
Oh, was he? I actually didn't know that. Interesting.
Because he like was a paedophile.
Oh, okay. Well, that.
Sorry, I was trying to be facetious, but you don't know the story. Yeah, he was a paedophile that escaped justice, so the parents of the kids took it upon themselves.
Oh, okay, right, yeah. So not that so much. Because what I was going to say is it's interesting where the greatest victim of the film is the monster, if you will. She is the character who has endured like the most hurt and been treated the most awfully, and that's her motivation, is that she's like, all I want is someone to take care of, but I can't communicate with people properly because of how I've been brought up. It's sort of interesting. It's kind of sad to me in a degree. It reminds me of those times where, like, you know, it was a disabled person all along, like it's a scary disabled person, that kind of thing. So yeah, I was sort of like, it was interesting because they made her 3D as a character, but then it also made me be like, well, why the hell are you making her the villain? You know, but then I suppose they tried to step back from that at the end when they made her sympathetic.
Again, like her killing of Andre is understandable because in her eyes he's kidnapped her children. In a way,
kind of.
It's
she's really up and down on how willing she is to kill people. Like she sort of picks at random.
It's like when she reads the script, she's like, "Oh, I meant to kill
someone." That's weird because I was feeling quite like sad and like lonely, but I guess
and it almost would have been interesting to have had the movie go about where she like didn't kill anyone, and so all she did was kidnap and keep in a odd reflection of what her father used to do.
Yeah,
but she was trying to be nurturing whilst he was abusing. And perhaps if like she'd kept Keith and Tess in the pit, and then by the time AJ joins them, Keith had died through like the bite. We talked how the bite was potentially actually him just like nicking himself on the stone. Maybe he died of sepsis or something.
Yeah. I see how that could.
So he's dead, and then that would have been horrible because Tess is then sharing a pit with a corpse, and then the mother would have like anger and sadness from the non-movement of one of her children, but Keith had also died anyway, so that's sad for the audience, and also she's a threat because she's like let him die because she doesn't know what she's doing, but hasn't fully been responsible for it, in the same way that perhaps if she'd entered the water tower and accidentally crushed Andre with the door or something, rather than fully ripped his limbs off, then again
that could be,
she's a threat without being intentionally
and I
harmful.
think they sort of chose to like ignore that. Like sometimes she's a peaceful character, if you will, like obviously incredibly flawed but peaceful, and sometimes she's incredibly violent. I mean, there again, like with everything else we're talking about, there's so many reasons you can assign to things. Like she's grown up with sort of on and off violence against her. She probably considers that normal. As you said, there may be certain people she considers to be her child and certain people she doesn't, and the people she doesn't are threats. I don't know how she knows what
how she decides that, because it's not even gendered.
That's
it's
the
not
thing.
Like
it's
just
like
has women
AJ's
as
a
her
child,
children.
Keith wasn't. Like Andre's not a child. Sort of interesting.
Yeah.
But I like you said, like maybe she thought he'd kidnap them, but then again that doesn't, I don't know. Again, it's one of those things where it's in reality, I suspect the reason that she's on and off with the killing is because there's some really cool, gruesome scenes, and there's some really great, shocking moments, not least the killing of Keith, which is fantastic, as a sudden shift in tone. And it's more scary that way if she bludgeons people to death sometimes.
Yeah, perhaps they didn't care about making so much of a point about that, which is why they chose to just be like, fuck yeah, I'm making a horror movie. I'm just going to make a bludgeon Keith to death because it'll be sad for the audience to then be like, oh no, I liked him. I suddenly decided that I liked him. Because I very much was like that. In the moment of his death, I was like, he was one of the good ones. But right up until that point, I was like, Tess, I don't know that we can trust Keith, babe.
You got to run, Tess. And then you're like, no, Keith, not Keith.
No, Keith. Not Keith. Also, in this talking of it, I've decided in my head that just as a nice bit of continuity, that the redhead with the yellow dress that he stalks from the gas station and opens the window of, and then we see her dress in his basement later, I would like to think that she is the mother's mother.
Or even the mother's mother, possibly. Depending on how many he's managed to squeeze in.
Possibly. Oh, this is interesting. I've just glanced over at the Wikipedia page, where under the production header, Zach Cregger, writer and director, was inspired by the non-fiction book The Gift of Fear, citing a section that encourages women to trust their intuition and not ignore the subconscious red flags that arise in their day-to-day interactions with men.
Well, you do hear that a lot, don't you? Like, people will tell you, like, always trust your instincts. If you feel suspicious of something, get out of there. Which, you know, I think he used that to a really good degree, whilst also kind of one of the things I thought that was so good was that in that first act, I didn't know what I would do. Like, I was like, my intuition was telling me this is fucked, you need to go. But it's like, she's not safe in that Airbnb. She's not safe on the porch. She's not safe sitting in her car for the night. She's not safe driving down that pitch black road on her own. Yeah. Like, I really couldn't see what I would do because they were all scary and my intuition was anti all of them.
Completely. It's so interesting, isn't it? We literally had a discussion at work about this the other day, where one of the talking points, I work on the radio, and one of the talking points we got people to call in about was, you know, do you feel safe at nighttime with the clocks going back? Do you feel safe in your neighborhood at nighttime? And we got into this discussion, and I was like, and people were like, oh, when I lived here, I felt much safer. When I lived over there, I felt less safe. All of these things. And I've lived in lots of different places in the country, and I genuinely turned to the person next to me and I was like, to be honest, like, I feel as safe and unsafe everywhere that I am, because everywhere is kind of unsafe. So it sort of neutralizes itself out, where I have to walk under the underpass at 4 o'clock in the morning because I have to get to my workplace on time.
Yeah. And just like in this situation, it's so real that you have these moments where your intuition will say this could not be safe, but you're like, well, I don't have a choice, or like it would be completely impractical for me to behave otherwise, just like it does with Tess. I mean, I know when you were in Reading, do you remember we were walking home to mine at like midnight or something, and we walked through that sort of semi-underpass thing, and there were two guys just hanging out in an underpass. Note to men, if you could just hang out elsewhere, that would be like amazing. But yeah, we both like hesitated for a brief moment, then both as one kept walking past them, like really sort of in silence, because we were like, I don't know, but like it was just really hard. It was like, should we keep talking? Should we not talk? Should we? And it was fine, but there's that moment where you're like, well, it's also going to be super noticeable if I turn around and leave the underpass and find a different way, and then that could be deemed like insulting or something. So despite feeling weird about it, you just got to keep going.
And just making these choices on the fly immediately. We didn't even have a discussion about it. We both clocked it, shut up, because we both decided in that moment that the safest thing to do was to draw as little attention as possible to ourselves as we were physically capable. We didn't speed up so much that it would have distracted them from their conversation, but we definitely started walking faster, but not like heavier with more intent, because again, we didn't want to appear threatening in any way or like we were scared. But like, and like all of these things are running through your head. all the time, and it like and of course it was fine, but the next night the exact same moment may have happened to another person, and they it could have gone completely differently because
you just never know.
It does.
And yeah, so it's, you know, Tess gets the intuition but can't listen to it because she hasn't got a better alternative, and that's a very common situation.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting movie in exploring that aspect of things. Just so impressed with, other than Andre, all of the characters. Really nicely, interestingly written characters. And I think as an actor, if you got that script, you'd be like, ooh, yum, yum, yum.
Yeah, it was a lovely small cast, and like a really good cast, and it was nice to see like all the characters built up so well. Really nice way, and it meant that like the deaths and the terror had a real impact on you, because you were like, no, not Tess or not Keith, or oh god, AJ, run, because they were like your protagonist and you really cared about them.
How many stars would you give it?
I think I'd give it, I think 4 stars I would give it.
Nice.
I did enjoy it a lot. There's a lot of things that I'm like, that could have been so much better, but overall it was like a really fun movie. I think I've sort of relaxed with it more. Like, it was so lauded by people on Twitter, and like a few of the sort of reviews I'd seen were quite highly rated, and I thought, oh my god, it's going to be amazing. And then so when I first saw it, it had been hyped too much, and whilst I enjoyed it, I was also like, that was not what people said it was. And it's particularly difficult with that particular film because, as we said, if you go and see it expecting what happens in the trailer to be the story, it's not the story. Now that I've had a week to like take it in, I feel good about what I saw, and I'd say 4 stars because it was all really enjoyable and fun. But yes, I think I would have said 3 stars when I first came out of the screening.
That's really fair. Yeah, so I also definitely stand by the less you know, the better, because I think, because basically what you knew going in was that Keith was going to die. Or
I didn't know, what I knew was that he wasn't the primary, like I didn't know if he was a good guy, but I knew it was something else that was the real like scary thing about it. So going back to what we were saying when we were doing the non-spoilery bit, the change in my experience was that I was not 100% confident, but certainly more confident than you were, that Keith genuinely was just an awkward guy who wasn't trying to hurt her. But even then, you still, because those moments are so, like, it's so obvious that's what they're suggesting to you, you're still like, I'm really not sure. But I just had that bit more confidence than you did.
Yeah.
In the goodness of Keith.
Goodness of Keith. Keith is such a bae.
He was great.
Sweet. He's such a little sweetheart. And I've come across a Keith a couple of weeks ago. I went on a date with very much a Keith that was like, we were walking back to his, and there was a big open car park that was quite creepy. And as we walked the long way, and it was very obviously the long way round the outskirts of this car park, he was talking and he was like, usually I would cut across the car park because it's much quicker, but I thought we'd go this way because I didn't want you to think that I was dragging you into this creepy, dark, unlit area. And like just talking the whole time about the choices that he was making because he wanted to make sure that, and then afterwards at 2 a.m. he was like, you are more than welcome to stay, but if you do want to leave, I will of course drive you home. And it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and he did, and he drove me home because he was like, I will make sure that you get home safe. And like just really thoughtful, sweet behavior. And again, my colleague at work was like, I always make a point to cross the road when women are coming towards me because I want them to see that I'm aware of how I might make them feel. Yeah. Kind of thing.
Yeah, and that was very much Keith's deal. Really, he was very self-aware and sort of an ally, which was, lovely, but also it was funny, that thing of like, and he took it all so well, which was really nice, although he did display the occasional bit of frustration over like, I'm trying so hard here to be non-threatening, and you still can't drop your guard around me. But you're like, that's the whole thing. Yeah. Like, no matter how much you do all the right things, if you're a stranger, you still can't like really be properly trusted. he had that wonderful, like, absolutely loved that line where he asked Tess, do I look like a monster? And they must have been so delighted to get Bill Skarsgård for that, because everyone in the cinema was like, yes, you look exactly like Pennywise the Clown.
Well, thank you for listening. This may be the first of many. Emily decides to watch a modern movie and loved it so much that she wants to talk about it in depth aspect of the podcast. So I'm sure Flo will be back in some capacity going forward.
Gladly.
Thank you so much. Thank you for seeing Barbarian with me, especially after I made you watch Host.
Oh my God.
Made you not sleep.
Still not sleeping well. Host is really fucking scary.
So Barbarian cured you in a way.
In a way, I actually did come out, didn't I? And I was like, I actually feel better now, because before we went to see it, I was like, oh my God, is this my reaction to all horrors? I thought I'm always fine with them, and I'm so scared. And then we saw Barbarian, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember. Like, most ones aren't like that, and there are a few laughs in them, and it's all fun.
Cool. Maybe join us next time on this. Otherwise, tune in to In a Barbie World and normal by this